You're gay, Brian.
Oh,
Whoa.
what's going on,
shut
everybody?
up.
Welcome back to the Hotter Trash Podcast.
Hello,
Hell
hello.
yeah. Oh man, how is everyone doing tonight?
Good.
I'm making love to
Good.
myself.
Yeah, that's my job.
As in loving yourself or actually whacking off?
Just
Whoa.
loving myself.
Hello
Ooh.
there, cowboy.
Like
Okay, he's
Hazley.
making it
Calm down.
ambiguous. He's keeping it ambiguous, guys. God damn it. But anyways, guys,
He won't tell us anything.
indeed. Welcome back to another episode. This time, if you wondered, if you look at the stream title, yes, it's in Japanese. Definitely
What
didn't
he
Google
said.
Translate XD. It's not that. It is in this case me translating in Japanese Assassin's Creed Shadows. That because that is today's topic. Oh man. Oh man. First of all, let's do a little small fun icebreaker. What was in this case your
No.
guys' favorite Assassin's Creed game? Go.
And I don't know. I've never played them.
God damn it, Michael.
4.
4,
Black Flag.
2. Actually, I stopped at Brotherhood.
I say one.
You say you didn't play Assassin's Creed, you liar.
You didn't
I
play
didn't.
any. You didn't play any more after 2.
I played like let me see. There was Brotherhood. There was another game.
Revelation. There was
Yeah,
a-
Revelation.
after 2, it was Brotherhood, Revelations. Fucking
Hold on, I gotta.
Then
How many more
Assassin's Creed
games?
4, Black Flag. Come on now.
My bad. But to get for a lot of extensive knowledge, no, I haven't really touched Assassin's Creed 3 and onwards.
I like
is
the
my
one
most-
where they were in Venice.
That's 2.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I thought it was like 1, 2, and 3.
No,
No.
1,
there's
2, and
1
3
and
are take
2.
place in different areas of history,
Oh,
Michael.
2 has
But
a
yeah, but
trilogy.
Venice. But I'm sure Venice existed between 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, only in
What do you
2.
think? What do you existed only for like a
The
short
story
period of
took
time?
place into
Look, 2,
in Venice,
2 had
yes.
a trilogy as well, so maybe that's where you get confused.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed 3 was the North American. You get to interact with George Washington. Hell yeah, brother.
George
Which was
Washington.
which one was the one where you got to be in Old England in the Industrial Revolution?
Syndicate?
Oh, that makes sense.
Syndicate was a fun one. I enjoyed
So-
it.
I haven't
So-
heard a whole lot of it. I mean, it's old now, right?
No, I
The
mean,
one you hear less. The one you hear less about is the one that's actually, decent.
yeah. Although, does that mean
There's
people
no
when they talk about
controversy around it.
Although, does that mean when people talk a lot about Black Flag, it's actually bad? I'm kidding with your logic, no.
I thought
I
people
mean,
didn't
Of
like
course, there's
Black Flag.
exceptions.
No, people love Black Flag, honestly. Although it was definitely like different in terms of story.
Well, I mean, I don't think they just liked it because it was different. They just liked it because the AI was wonky.
I also like commanding a pirate ship.
To be fair though, a lot of the AIs in many Assassin's Creed games can be considered wonky because Ubisoft's approach to stealth is as long as you're crouched, you are invisible to them.
Honestly, that's like most stealth games at this point. Like, I feel like the only way stealth in games work is if the enemies are a little bit stupid and are like careless and just don't think.
Oh. Oh.
Or maybe it's too hard to code an AI that doesn't like that.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Dude, we need to like. I want to see a game where it's like legitimate stealth. Like, even if you're in the dark and you're moving, like someone might be able to see you if you're like being stupid about it.
I mean, there was a game like that, but it was during the PSP era called the Tenchu. Yeah,
Tenchu?
but yeah, Tenchu. But
Oh.
right on time with like the fact too, because the newest Assassin's Creed game it also takes place in Japan, or at least in the Sengoku period of the Japan.
Sengoku Jedi.
Yeah, so
Alright, saying
this
that's completely wrong.
probably actually no, Sengoku Jedi sounds about
Yes.
right. But anyways,
Yep.
The country
It
at
is.
war.
Right?
You know, I only know that because of the intro to Shogun. Shogun 2.
Yeah,
No.
that's what it's based off.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna mute real quick.
That's
Oh,
where it
God,
takes
no.
place during the Sengoku period.
Yeah. So in this case, everyone might be wondering why are we talking about this? Are we talking about in this case the controversy that surrounds the title? We're mostly going to be touching on that really because here's our opinion about the whole Assassin's Creed Shadow controversy on behalf of the Hot Trash podcast. It is overblown and stupid.
Absolutely.
Yes, I
The-
agree.
Yeah. For those that aren't aware of what the controversy is, a lot of it is going back and forth based on like if Yasuke is a samurai or not, or if anything, they are really questioning of why Ubisoft is actually using an historical figure for their Assassin's Creed title when historically they were always like original characters or non or they're all fictional characters in a time period that they took place in. So,
That's
I mean, not always.
mm,
yes. Yes, you're right.
yeah, not
Yeah, I guess
always, but
the player you play, yes,
yeah.
but like everybody, like
That's-
NPCs in the story can be based off of, or sometimes based off of real people.
Yeah. So, regardless of that, too, that was pretty much like what the argument or what the whole controversy is primarily about, too, is that is Ubisoft really kind of using Yasuke as an actual, like, honest way of trying to tell a unique story of Assassin's Creed and set in the Sengoku period, or is Yasuke kind of just used for other messaging?
Other
And
messaging.
Shadow.
yeah. It's here's the only thing that I can say about it. Whether or not if it is for like a progressive agenda that they're trying to push onto people to accept and whatnot too, it's a bit stupid, really, in my opinion.
See, like, to be honest, I don't think that primarily because there's like a black samurai. I think it because it's Ubisoft and they've just, I mean, they unequivocally do things they can't, like, can't do to people. Like, everything. They like it's just go back and look at all their games, half their games. They do.
Well, if any, we don't need to. We could literally look at their newer titles, which is this game and Star Wars Outlaws. Literally, a lot of things are going on within it, underneath Ubisoft's like development team.
I
Such
just
as
don't
the fact-
trust Ubisoft. That's it.
I don't think anyone truly does. And I think that's where, like, at least on one side of the argument, this is coming from the fact too that like we wouldn't mind in this case if Yasuke was an actual playable character. Nobody really cared like if you use Yasuke as a character. We don't even care if he is black or not. Does not matter. The only thing that is a problem from like a lot of these fans too is that it can't be helped that like they're using Yasuke as like a deflection tool, like easy deflection tool if the game is bad. Saying the fact that, oh, you guys don't like the game, it's because you guys are racist or some shit. Anyways, this is a little bit much, but it's like it doesn't help that like it comes off like that for like everyday players, right? However, I don't really typically see it that way either. But then again, this is also something that like Ubisoft intentionally picked them just because both in terms of marketing, controversy sells.
I agree.
So regardless, even if whether or not it is right or not to, we're gonna be really talking into in this case, like, does picking Yasuke actually make sense in terms of development, or if anything, there's more to Yasuke's story that if Ubisoft is trying to mess up with kind of shit.
Hmm. I
So-
guess we can first get started kind of about like who this character is in
So-
history, like real life.
So, Floyd, do you want to cover this part?
Well, as many of like us know, like in this particular group, maybe just one of few of us. Yasuke was labeled as a retainer to Nobunaga and everything. Everybody knows Oda and his little rise to fame and everything, his power trip.
Mhm.
But that's pretty much it. And the controversy is just, was he really, like, does being retainer really, reflect that you are like indeed a samurai? Which, we can't really know his history, and he didn't serve Oda for too long because there was an incident, like his pretty famous like incident in Japanese Sengoku period. As like, he was just betrayed by one of his closest, I say, general's friend, that type of deal. But there's honestly there's little to no historical documents about Yasuke after, even when he was introduced, and even after the death of Oda. So we know this is what his really pertaining to and how the controversy just spiraling out of control based on that fact.
Yeah. So, and I'll probably help you out with this a bit more to kind of explain where did Yasuke as a character came from. Based on like a lot of like the whatever is left of those historical accounts, it is already like pretty much known that Yasuke came in as, in this case, a slave that was purchased by the Jesuit, that he was born in a African tribe somewhere in Mozambique, somewhere there.
Mhm.
Yes.
And based on a lot of those contexts, we can honestly infer that Yasuke definitely did have like warrior type training. It is definitely nothing that resembles that of like, let's say, a typical samurai fighting styles that were prominent during that Sengoku period. But then again, that period alone is also like a time as well where the Portuguese were introducing themselves to Japan, and therefore firearms started becoming more prevalent in a lot of like Japanese military.
Mhm.
So these were very much weird times to begin with. So I wouldn't really like discount the fact that yeah, there isn't much information about Yasuke entirely, only because like in the grand scheme of what's going on in this period, he actually kind of makes little impact to the history in the whole history of the unification of Japan, because that was like the result towards the end of the Sengoku period was the true unification of Japan finally. But
Yeah.
with, in this case, a lot of times too, what comes off as like part of this argument too is like, is Yasuke is not really considered as a samurai because he is only a retainer. And then there were people fighting back that like, I mean, I thought all people that were retainers were samurais. Like what Lloyd pointed out, just because you are a retainer doesn't necessarily mean you are a samurai. It's more like a samurai in of itself too is not an occupation, but more like a class of like uh, a cultural class within Japanese society.
Mhm.
Which towards the end of the Sengoku period, it was also like the slow death of like the class of samurais in the end, just because like
It was more.
there's
It was more later on.
it was definitely
It
later
wasn't
on.
during the Sengoku period. They were still pretty prevalent, but
Mm,
besides that,
It was more towards
continue.
whenever Japan started be like taking more influence from foreign areas like the U.S. and Portuguese and French, England. Right, that's like when the class started to dissolve.
yeah,
I mean, they had a whole civil war about it.
yeah.
Another
If you
one.
want, yeah, if you want to know what that looks like, watch The Last Samurai by Tom Cruise. God. Okay. Regardless
on.
if like regardless of the if that movie was accurate or not, it was an entertaining to watch movie, to say the least. Because in this case, I love seeing Ken Watanabe in any film that he's in.
Oh,
But
okay.
but going back on topic with the whole ordeal with Yasuke, in my honest opinion too, because like the way how Yasuke is in terms like the character that he represents in history is so unique that like in one ways or the other, it wouldn't surprise me that he is actually considered a samurai based off of like Oda giving him the title of a retainer, which also he give him a stipend and a piece of land that he owns underneath like the leadership of Oda. So it's not that too far off to assume that he could be a samurai. But then again, this is me assuming otherwise. This is also something that it can't actually be proven otherwise too.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
very just. There's not really a whole lot to go off of.
Yeah.
So like,
because,
Yep.
Sorry, go
where
ahead.
did all
Michael.
the? So if all we know is that he was a retainer by Oda Obunaga.
Nobunaga.
You
Sorry,
just say Oda.
Oda.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then how do we know? How do we know anything else about him? I thought we just knew those two things.
Well, that is a lot of it is mostly just based off of like a lot of historians that are just making a theory of like what he could have represented, right? That's
do you
what a
mean
lot
by
of
what he represented?
because like honestly too, like before in this case the novel series of in this case African samurai or legendary African samurai Yasuke, yeah, before that book there was only actually those historical context that a lot of times people can only base it off of. And this book that came out, it was mostly to like kind of flesh out and kind of give his take on like what it might have been. Keyword is might have been.
Where did he source his information from?
Again, based only off of like the context available given to him because he was a professor in Japan, right? And he was making in this case a novel. He admits that in this case the book itself is not an autobiography, but it is a novel. So really,
Crazy.
so really a lot of times that what people are like saying to like this author was acting in bad faith, he probably didn't want to do so intentionally. Obviously there was some stuff that he did had to like change up just so that he could sell books, really. And whether or not too, like if he actually did like get a Japanese historian to confirm it or not to, there really wasn't much to either confirm or deny either, since again, that was the only information that we know. And everything else that the book kind of expanded more about the character Yasuke, it's more or less up in the air for interpretation.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is he's making kind of like a bold claim,
Yeah,
and I'm wondering
that's-
where he's getting that information from. He like who told him that? Where did he see that?
like I said, it's he is the author, so a lot of it can be assumed that he was mostly just making an assumption. Like this is just a guess to the best of his ability based off of what was actually available to him, which are in this case the few historical documents or context about this character.
Yeah, but if
And
the historical context was like, wasn't it like 3-4 sentences,
no, like not sentences, more like pages, but even then,
pages?
yeah. Like there were definitely documents that did mention him like somewhat in length, but it wasn't enough to really like paint the whole picture of like the whole life of Yasuke kind of shit. Like
Like
it only
who
covered
is
like
this
a
guy?
slice. But yeah, it only
Mhm.
covered like a small slice of like what he did at that time. And a lot of times in the book too, it is probably assumed otherwise. Like especially if you have like a African retainer as well too. Why would Oda, out of all people, actually do something like that to like make him like a retainer? Because more or less than not, too, he was a slave to the Jesuit, which are in this case the was it the Portuguese Catholic Church? I don't remember that part actually. Someone help me out here.
I mean, I
That's
I
already-
couldn't say for certain, but I'm sure during that period of time, the Portuguese were like had the most hands-on inside the country or trading with the country. So I wouldn't be surprised.
So really it does come to like in this case the author for that novel was just making an assumption, and to his best guess there's a lot of context that behind like Oda, as he's very much like a unique character amongst like a lot of like the Japanese shoguns that were in this case correct me the naming that I got wrong here, Lloyd. It was both Oda Nobunaga, Ieyasu, and Tokugawa. Those were like the
So
yeah.
so what are you trying to refer to? Like
In this
just like what are you trying to
in this case, I'm trying to differentiate like Oda Nobunaga compared to the other two lords that he was fighting against during that time period.
It wasn't who he was fighting against. So Oda, he was fighting against like multiple people. He had like three main people.
Hmm.
It was the Mori in the west. It was Sugi in the north. I believe I'm saying that right. I don't know. I might have
Usugi.
butchered it. And the Takeda in the east. So
Takeda.
and Ieyasu, he was a part like he was with Allegiance with Oda, and
Mm.
Otoyami was also in Allegiance, and that's was pretty much his successor after
Hmm.
his death. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, in this case, like, what is the best way to really describe Oda Nobunaga based off what we know of him so far?
well, he like if anybody who even dabbles in the Sengoku period knows of Oda, because this man, as you know, very renowned, you know, lord, like conquering pretty much everything
Mhm.
essentially. He was pretty young too. When he first started, I think he was like closer, like to 20, if what I read was correctly. But he probably in that time period, that was probably getting towards like the tail end of it, because
Mhm.
they probably didn't have as much modern medicine that we did. But yeah, pretty much he was like, I want to. He pretty much like all the games and shit is still based off of this period, but it's
Mhm.
conquering, pretty much trying to unify Japan. It was his main goal. That's like, get rid of the chaos, the turmoil during that period. So yeah, that's pretty much who he is. He also met like Tokugawa. So if you watch Shogun, the FX show, he Torinaga is actually based off of Tokugawa, and that's how. And like the battle you see towards the end of it is actually one of the huge, like largest battles during that period. And you read it. It's in history. Hirei won. And he became Shogun essentially.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to explain, but it really doesn't really pertain to Yasuke because Yasuke isn't as
Yeah.
he isn't as a prominent figure as Ubisoft is making him out to be. Like a legendary samurai, a black samurai, is
Yeah.
kind of pushing it, because if you really think about it, during that time, there were like I just mentioned Oda, and I mentioned Totoyami,
Ieyasu and
you know
Ieyasu Tokugawa.
exactly.
Like literally, there's
There's
so many
also
key figures.
and Dante Masamune. There's Mori. There's Takeda. Literally all the
Mhm.
daimyos,
Yeah,
and
daimyos.
during that period. So he's not like the highest figure of his their respective clan. He was just serving under Oda.
Yeah.
Like
Like
whether I'm like undermining this, it's like I'm honestly I don't think I am, because if he was a legendary samurai, black samurai who served under Oda, you think you would hear more about him and of his heroics during battle.
Mhm.
But given that there's this controversy whether he was a samurai or anything, like or like being his retainer and all, would imply, oh, he's a samurai because he's a retainer. It's
Yeah.
so up in the airs.
I figured if he has the title like legendary samurai that there would be more than like 4 pages, especially if he was dead, if he was like serving under like the guy who literally became um the shogun. Like I figure there would be so much more like said about him.
So he didn't technically he didn't serve other than the shogun, because Ieyasu was the one that instilled his shogun period
Mhm.
during I think it was 1600, because Oda died like probably nearly 2 decades before, because he was betrayed by another person, Mitsuhide Itachi.
mhm.
Oh,
But
see,
that's a whole different story.
I thought
But
he was kind of like not one, but he was the one who changed hands with him.
historically, Oda he was on the he was on that path to be to unify Japan,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
he did die because he was betrayed.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think so yeah, like Hideyoshi, like that's his first name. I'm gonna figure right now. So he was pretty much the successor to Oda after he was after he passed away. So Yasuke didn't work under Hideyoshi. Technically, he worked under Oda, because believe if I looked on Yasuke's like little anything pertaining to him under serving under Oda, it's like after he died, he kind of just disappeared in a way, and there was nothing you know pertaining to Yasuke at all.
Mhm.
So that's where I get that's where I want to emphasize that we don't know much of Yasuke, and the legendary samurai part doesn't like sit well with me, because like I said, he's not a super prominent figure. He's just it's like a black retainer under Oda. Okay, that's pretty
Yeah.
much how I see it. It's
Yeah.
not like no, like it's not being offensive. It's just what's written in history. He's just a retainer, and like I said, if you if he was legendary, like under Oda, like Oda, like everybody knows Oda, then wouldn't you expect him to have like several like documents of his heroics in battles and how
Yeah.
you know how he was just unstoppable or some shit, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
you know.
or if anything, if he was also like a retainer too, like he wouldn't have like anybody else that's like with working underneath Yasuke too, because it that would also recount a lot of the tales and stories about him either. But again, we really don't know too much about it. Outside of
Yeah.
the fact that if you read like the history books and you see the name Yasuke, it's like, oh, so there's this guy who doesn't really have like a family name, which is also for a lot of people that are saying that like he can't be a samurai because he doesn't have like a family name to it. That's also kind of bullshit too, because there were definitely some samurais that could actually be a samurai even if they didn't have a family name. Other historical names. Fuck. There was one I was prepared for it. I can't find my notes. Shit. But let's just assume otherwise. There was one that
Wait, what?
can allegedly be a samurai even without a family name. Just because again, there's definitely like a rules or set up like requirements needed in order for you to become a samurai, but not all the conditions can technically be met, but it's also based on the time period as well of who became a samurai, especially in the Sengoku period, which is also probably the most chaotic time period of Japan.
Yeah.
So whether or not again, if Yasuke was a samurai or not, this is still in this case part of like a bigger argument that a lot of historians have to tackle with too, just because they're going off of so little information here that all they can really do is make inferences, or not inferences, just assumptions, guesstimates, whatever they really can to make sure that like it lines up correctly with like current history that they know of. And so this is gonna mostly now gonna tie back to what like Ubisoft says. There was an apology letter that they did roll out too, saying that they're pretty much are sorry that like they didn't consult enough people to validate whether or not like whatever they were trying to say too, they're trying to market it as like legendary black samurai Yasuke, and that was a correct like title for this historical figure. But outside of that, they tried their best to like say that Assassin's Creed in all of its runtime has always been about historical fiction, which honestly, that's not really a problem in my opinion, because who am I to really believe too that like there's this one guy named Ezio Auditore that became best friends with Leonardo da Vinci?
Mhm.
Yeah, just
Like obviously,
dude.
I think a lot of people can assume otherwise, that anything about like Assassin's Creed is already like a work of fiction, especially the bigger subplot behind Assassin's Creed is that it's the assassin versus a Templar trying to find some alien artifact, which is fucking weird. And I
Yeah.
low-key kind of like that story in some ways. So I have no idea what they're really gonna write about for Assassin's Creed Shadow, because a lot of the controversy has been taking up most of the limelight that I have no idea how this game is going to turn out. So
we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of controversy, but it's not even out yet. So how can we really judge it right now?
yeah,
Are we really just judging on the historical information that's based off of, or the character? Or are we gonna judge it by what the games actually is? That is based off historical information with a twist of fantasy story writing from like creative writing from the developers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's how all Assassin's Creeds have been. It's based off of there have been historical figures included in these games, and they were real people and they're documented in history. But they also have like the main character you play is a made up character that lived during this time and interact with these historical figures.
yeah,
So that's what Assassin's Creed is.
yeah. So again, when they revealed that they were actually going to use Yasuke, who in this case is a historical figure, but not like in the scale or level of like historical figure, how much of an impact they made in the historical time versus like every other character like Oda Nobunaga, Ieyasu, Tokugawa, a lot of those like key figures. So in general too, if you look at Yasuke and you look at like his historical background and you frame it in like the Assassin's Creed storytelling, he's probably a perfect character to do this type of shit. Especially like he's also based on what we know about Yasuke's background too. He probably would not have fought like a samurai to begin with. He was already like a trained warrior to begin with.
Yes.
But in the trailer, they did showcase to us that apparently Yasuke himself is like learning how is showcasing that he can do like Japanese like martial arts or kendo. And it's a little bit interesting, albeit maybe it's not honestly me nitpicking at that point too, because I would say that like if you're using Yasuke, you actually want to make him like interesting. Keep the fact about the like he probably would not have fought the same way that the Japanese would.
I mean, if they trained him.
I mean, this was also a period where guns were like essential in winning military battles.
Yeah.
Because it was already introduced earlier, like
Yeah.
during that century, you know?
Yeah.
So if you didn't have guns, you're pretty much not winning.
Yeah. Because if maybe this is probably based off like not like backed up information, but there was at least at some point too that like Yasuke apparently commanded like a small like firearm team or like a rifle company team.
Like a
That was-
rifleman infantry.
Yeah, rifleman infantry under like Oda's command. So people with that in mind think that like, okay, so that means he can be a samurai, because usually most samurais would like command like a group of soldiers to begin with. That's usually what they are. As like in this case, samurais in a similar comparison, they're closer to like European knights. That is the only best way to really showcase to you like how similar they are, because samurais is not an occupation, but it's more like a title. Versus like how being a knight does not mean that you do like all your knight occupations like fighting and cavalry charges. No, you actually have in some cases responsibility to fulfill your end with your lord that you're serving under, such as maintaining a portion of a land too and whatnot. It's like it's very much weird the way how both in this case two different sides of the world too, both in Japan and in Europe too, they have similar structure when it comes to like feudal style as well. And that's why the whole famous trope of knights versus samurai was super popular. That was the only reason. But going back to the Yasuke point,
Legendary Warriors or whatever it was called.
yeah, legendary warriors. But going back to that point too, it was very much like no one actually probably had an issue of having Yasuke be a main character for the next Assassin's Creed Shadow. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't see a big issue behind it. But there was definitely some unique decisions that Ubisoft is doing that in this case we're not even entirely sure if they want to keep Yasuke like historically accurate, or this is like their interpretation of Yasuke anymore. And it's really hard to really tell the difference, because either way too, this is still a creative fiction story under Ubisoft development no matter what. So the Yasuke we see in this one is definitely not the Yasuke that is representative in real life as well. Now,
Yeah.
Not much is known about him in real life. So why is this a
Yeah.
problem?
yeah,
So,
That's what I
And-
started to ask: is what's the issue at this point?
yeah. So it's like, if anything too, I wouldn't even say too, I don't think this is a big issue to begin with either, especially when there were people saying that like, oh, the Japanese government is getting involved. A little bit of context behind it. The Japanese government, the only closest thing to who is actually getting involved is like some small fringe group of political party that is locally known for in the population in Japan as a group of people that do not be taken seriously, as they make a lot of outlandish claims. So a lot of like the narrative that like the Japanese government is getting involved to, it is definitely just a small group of people talking about that, because really nobody in Japan honestly cares, Because if they truly did care, if like any other media is trying to represent Japanese history, games like Samurai Warriors or Sengoku Basara, those two games should not have existed then, because they are definitely a subversion, or in this case a different retelling of the Sengoku period battles.
There's
So
some facts to
there's some
those
facts
games,
too. Yeah, there's still some facts, but a lot of the characters themselves were definitely truly not what they represented. Hell, fucking Sengoku Basara, they portrayed Date Masamune as a biker leader who can apparently wield 6 katanas at once.
though. Yeah.
So if it
Sounds realistic.
if authenticity is something that people really do care about too, then I guess like we really need to look at all these other Japanese IP titles that got away with it too, and be like, you're not being historically accurate to what you're trying to retell the story of. I'm like, yeah, it becomes a very exhausted game of like, okay, what about this and what about that? And it's like nobody honestly cares. I don't care about it, at least. What really is the difference that I think doesn't make sense, at least if you want to at least maintain like a cultural, like true cultural representation, here's some things that were pointed out from people when watching the trailers from it. There was at least some parts of the trailer whenever it's like Yasuke and he's fighting with people in the streets. Couple of notes here. For whatever reason, the battle soundtrack that they used for him specifically is like a remixed hip-hop Japanese battle songs. Like it had hip-hop beats whenever it was Yasuke fighting, and then if it was Naoe, it was just traditional like intense like Japanese musics. So it was very much on the nose of like, are you doing this just because to showcase that it's Yasuke and that he's black? I don't know. That's pretty much how I felt when I saw
Yeah.
that too.
That I don't under.
Yeah.
Not, like it's cool. Like, they're implementing some hip hop and like Japanese shit. Like
Yeah.
they're infusing and creating a new sound, but
It,
it doesn't really have to be made.
yeah.
Does it really, like, during that period, do you really believe that's what music there was, that type of music back then?
Yeah.
Like, I honestly think it would have been cool to like have just traditional.
Yeah, or not even just that too. Not even just that too. It's literally like, I don't know. It's like it definitely comes off as a little tone deaf in this case, a music selection for that scenario, right? So there was that. And the other thing to make note of too is in a particular cutscene. So, firstly, too, for a lot of samurais, they would not actually wear like their samurai armors when they're going through like the town normally. Because traditionally, if you see a samurai don their armor, they're trying to get ready for battle. So that's how a lot of Japanese like citizens back then, that's how they recognize like a samurai too, because they usually can tell if it's a samurai because they carry like 2 swords to the side of them. And those are usually the indicator that like only samurais are allowed to like carry swords in their wayside. So if the Ubisoft says he's a samurai, then let it be that he is a samurai now. Doesn't matter. But really, to see him wear full battle armor is a little bit concerning for a normal Japanese villager that's like looking at this like, oh shit, is there a battle about to happen here? Yeah.
Yep.
So it's
So you're-
definitely
okay, hold on,
interesting.
hold on. You're saying he's wearing, okay, in the game, right?
Yeah.
He's wearing
and-
armor while going through a town.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, it's a game. I mean, what's the concern?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 100% accurate.
Yeah, which is perfectly fine then if that is the case. Then it was just something that like I remember hearing someone that said too that like most samurais themselves wouldn't technically like wear their armors outside into the village. But then again, because this is a video game, there's a lot of like leeway to really like us as a gamer has to like accept at that point.
There's creative freedom that is
Yeah.
just imposed on us.
Mm-hmm. So
Oh.
that part is
there's
tech.
there's something that don't really matter.
Yeah.
Let me be honest. Like just them not wearing armor while going through a city. It's a nice touch, but is it necessary to the story? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe this is also mostly like due to the fact that Ubisoft itself as a company is not doing popular to gamers. You know, ever since, you know, them shutting down the crew.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This is just, in my eyes, this is nitpicking.
yeah, it is definitely nitpicking, which this will definitely be one of the only few things to really nitpick about it. Overall, I think the game, generally speaking, looks perfectly fine. Like, graphic wise, it looks good. But outside of that, it does have like the Ubisoft like gameplay language of stealth is as long as you're crouched. The peripheral vision of like any person is like needle focused to like a pixel on the screen.
It's a game.
Yeah,
Like Victor like said, just to reiterate, it's a game.
yeah.
So doesn't really have to make sense unless we find it fun. Like some of the funnest fucking games that we've played has some fucking outlandish fucking physics, and it doesn't make sense at all. And I don't see why there's a problem
Truly.
with
Yeah.
you know
Exhibit
Assassin's
A.
Creed.
Exhibit A.
Oh.
Helldivers 2. do. But anyways, back to that. Back to our original talk. Yeah, I mean, in this case, Victor, do you want to add anything else to like the whole thing? To like, we all agree to the controversy is stupid to begin with, but is there like actual like good criticism that we can at least point towards Assassin's Creed Shadow that like Ubisoft hopefully will fix, or something else that will be the reason why the game doesn't succeed?
Mm.
I'm not too sure, honestly,
Hmm.
because it's the problem of Yasuke being an absolute mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
The
yes,
whole-
they do some things that seem very, strange, like the whole hip hop music stuff.
Yeah.
Just specifically for Yasuke, yeah, I understand that's a little strange, but at the same time, I haven't played the game, nor have I watched much gameplay, so I don't really know like what they could improve on realistically.
Yeah. And like I said, it won't really matter to us anyways too, just because if the game releases and it does super well too, all of our points at this point right now would just be meaningless. Like if we try to overly nitpicky about the game here, right? Just
Yeah.
because yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know.
We disagree.
Yeah, okay.
That's true.
But yeah, and there's like a lot of like data that's already being backed up based on Ubisoft released that like what was it in Japan too. God, I hate the fact that this is a sales. Apparently in Japan, there's like a record amount of pre-order sales about Assassin's Creed Shadows. So
Well, it looks like the Japanese have no problem with it. Why do we have a problem with it?
yeah,
Why are we getting
We're
offended for other
American,
people?
and we might. We're American. Everything is secretly about us. Duh.
You're
Narcissist.
right, we're American, so everything is a problem. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Narcissist.
yeah.
Wasn't there like another issue where they say there was something about the LGBT? Like,
Oh, yeah, no,
hurting
that's
Yasuke?
right. Oh yeah, no, that was it. Like one of the developers have said too that like both Naoe and Yasuke, which are both the main characters for Assassin's Creed Shadows, they are both LGBT allies, and I'm like, why?
What does that
What?
even mean?
Yeah. So I'm not, feel offended if I do say something that offends you, but I think it's really stupid to include that in such a fucking in a game like that's based in feudal Japan.
Mhm.
See, and
I
that's
just
that's
think
what I
it's
mean,
Really stupid.
and that's what I mean. Where I don't really trust Ubisoft because they do specific things, and it seems like they don't do it because it adds anything really. They just do it to like get favor from people.
Like,
Yeah. Maybe it's also the fact that they want to seem that they're super progressive just so that one they can like bury the dirt of like maybe there were a lot of like company allegations of like work culture that they're trying to stay far away from. Who knows?
Well,
Maybe
what they
that
need to
is-
know is that stuff doesn't get buried.
I just I'm like, you don't have to do it. There's other ways to show it. Like,
or
Just keep
not
making good
just-
games.
This is the way they think it's gonna work.
oh, I
See, the
think
thing
it's
is,
stupid.
just make
Yeah.
a good game. You don't need to make a game pandering.
Look, they
Like,
are
trust
making
me,
a good game. They're a
People
quadruple A
will
company.
forget. No, they're
They
not.
know what they're doing. No, we don't.
You'll
God,
never
I-
get me
I'm
to
just,
call them
I'm
that.
just saying. I'm like, I know my opinion is just like I'm just a small, I'm a little freaking Asian guy in
Small Asian
Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. I'm like, I could, I'm like 0.000000000 like 1% of like the fucking population, in my opinion, will probably never won't be heard, except for the.
I'm
our
hearing
closer-
it.
Yeah,
Don't
I
worry,
did say
more
I'm
people
not
will
close
hear
group.
about this, and especially to my fans over at India, that will definitely hear about this.
I just want to reiterate, it's really stupid to like just impose this agenda on us.
I don't even
Like
think it's
I have no problem like you know
yeah.
like the LGBT, you know, like or like for fuck's sakes, like me and you had a gay coworker, and I think he was a fucking cool guy,
Yeah. Given the
Like,
fact
he
he
was
told
like-
me I wasn't his type.
and the fact that he had interest in me, and then I had to shut him down. So
Let's just say we had very weird group of coworkers.
I'm like, he's like, you know,
And
like
Brian was
I had
nice.
no fucking problem with him. Like, you know, we worked together. You know, we talked about it. I even brought up the topic about like some of these like even some offensive shit that you know that might be going around during the time. I talked about him. I sat down with him. He's like pretty chill about it. He didn't have to go like push his agenda. Just told me this is how I personally feel. And
Yeah,
you know,
it's-
it doesn't speak for the whole community because some, you know, like we're all human, or you know, whether we like, you know, we're gay or we're straight, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Just
No, if
don't know.
no, it's like a lot of people don't like it either way too. But this is coming that I want to really preface this too. The only reason for me that I don't necessarily like the way how Ubisoft says that like both of these characters are LGBT ally is only because like what purpose does this serve for you guys? Like why do we as like a consumer need to care that they are allies? Like-
That's my question too. Why?
Yeah. Like
It's honestly a question of why.
yeah, because like again, Ubisoft, they're not doing a good track record of like actually trying to sell their games or trying to market their game. Hell, fucking Skull and Bones is like abysmal right now. They're losing millions of dollars because of that game now. Because like majority,
That exists still?
yeah, because majority of their player bases too, they didn't even buy the game. They're literally only playing the game via demo. Majority of the player bases are only playing the game through a demo. So
It's astounding.
So really, it's like for me though, the actual true criticism about the Ubisoft like head in general is like, can you develop a good game now too? Because again, Skull and Bones was supposed to be like a system that's supposed to be like expand more like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but somehow you made it even worse than Black Flag. Hell, there was even a study, or not even study, there was even a report that came out that Black Flag had a resurgence of players come back to play it after Skull and Bones was released. Like,
You know,
Skull
talking
and
about Black
Bones.
Flag a lot. It makes me want to play Black Flag again too.
Why?
yeah. If anything else, if you guys want to protest vote, play Black Flag,
Question mark? No.
or no. Here's a better thing too. If you actually want to play like a really good like Japanese like assassin like style gameplay too. In this case, if you don't really care much about the Assassin's Creed story and you just want to play like a game that takes place in like feudal or like Sengoku period Japan, play Ghost of Tsushima. That's already a really amazing game. So the problem being is the fact that Assassin's Creed, like having a setting that takes place in Japan is like a community like requested time period that we would want to see like it happen, right? Just because like if it's assassins and then ninjas, that like hell fucking yeah. But based on like the way how Ubisoft has been like doing too, and based off like some stories that I heard too, like Star Wars Outlaw 2, some of the developers for the game has requested like the higher ups to be like, hey, we need like actually a couple more months to like work on this game too, because by the time they release the gameplay footages of that too, Outlaws is only like a few months away until release, and it's not looking that great. And higher ups just says, nope, we are about to release this game in a couple of months. We don't care what you say. Which is, oh my god, this goes into another topic of like I don't know if the right approach to Assassin's Creed Shadow would be like delay the games just so that they could fix all this stuff too, or release as is. I don't know. Because I think Victor, me and you have like a discussion before about like does like would delaying the games fix a lot of problems?
Hmm.
Maybe. I don't. That's hard to say, honestly.
Right.
Would
Well,
delaying games fix problems? I mean, in theory, it would, but I mean, there's a lot of games that have been delayed that still have a ton of issues with them. So I don't know.
yeah. So, yeah. Whether or not to is like if it does work or not, but it's also not a guarantee that like delaying your game is a success either. Hell, look what happened to Halo Infinite.
Man, oh man.
Granted, their delay was due to reworking like the art style of the game,
Yeah,
which
when
means they
they
weren't able
showcased
to
at
work on
E3.
other aspects. Which means they weren't able to showcase other or fix other aspects of the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tracy, like yeah, so Infinite's a good example of delaying a game and it being still not as good as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just say, I mean, for right now, like, again, this doesn't really bother me as much, or it shouldn't bother me as much. But I think that the only thing that it does bother me is usually the controversy that surrounds it. And it's just how fucking dumb it is, too. Especially with the argument's sake of like, we don't like it just because Yasuke is black. I was like, well, if you say that, then that means you're an actual racist if you do that. Sure, but half the time that's not why. That's not why we're mad in the first place. We're mostly just skeptical of like Ubisoft being able to deliver a game.
Yeah, I really dislike people that uses that excuse.
Yeah.
It's just a way for them to defend a bad, like I guess, game or product or whatever.
Yeah. Like you're trying to give yourself too much justification of like you don't want to admit that you're racist, but you want to try to sound intellectual either. So I don't know. At least that's how I see it. Anytime that people make this argument, I'll even say this otherwise too. We don't care if Yasuke is black, but if my honest opinion too, I don't really see myself wanting to play Assassin's Creed Shadows. Because if I want to play a game that's similar in that time period, I would actually like play other stuff about it. Sekiro would also be a fun one.
Yeah. That's a
But-
really fun game. I love it.
Yeah, but God.
No, something. I don't know. Something just crossed my mind, and I don't know. Oh, I just had a thought, then just disappeared.
Anyway,
Sometimes. Yeah, it'd be like that sometimes, man. Especially with like, oh god, whatever fucking happened with Ubisoft, Victor? Like, what just happened with them?
I don't know, man. I think they're just like any other big company, just trying to follow the trend of
Yeah,
inclusivity stuff.
not even that too. They've been trying their best to follow any type of trend too. Inclusivity is, yeah, like inclusivity is the most recent one because even back then too, they were trying to do the whole NFT push in their games too because we saw that shit at Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Did we? I don't remember.
Yeah, there was one for like Breakpoint that you could buy like an NFT like shit, like a hoodie or some shit like that. It was something really dumb and moronic that no player actually engaged with at all.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think right now? I wonder if it's also like the way how Assassin's Creed Shadows that they're really baking on this controversy. That's why it feels like, to me, the whole controversy also feels manufactured, right? Just because if you really look at Ubisoft's Shutu, they could have actually just made another fictional character. They didn't have to use Yasuke, but they knew that like picking Yasuke would definitely like cause some type of like internet outrage, just because they already do know that like there's not much to go off of Yasuke either. Because even if there was only one that really covers it. And it's mostly a novel.
Or maybe they were generally interested in Yasuke because of the mystery around him. You know, like
Yeah.
the people will make like works of fiction based on like people that didn't have much of a history behind them.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, it's like I find that perfectly normal, and I do think. I mean, obviously, Ubisoft did execute it slightly poorly, and the people are overreacting. But I don't think it was a bad choice to choose Yasuke for
yeah,
this story.
yeah. Because genuinely speaking, I would love to see like an Assassin's Creed title playing as a historical figure that actually has some mystery behind it too, because we don't know who he is.
Because yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's a game, so it's supposed to be creative. So because he doesn't have much of a history behind him, you can essentially just
Right,
have fun and
whatever.
create something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
it fun. That's the whole point
Yeah.
of a
It's
goddamn
a
game.
work of fiction. This is not supposed to be real. So I don't know
Yeah.
why people are like
Really trying to
angry
go,
about this.
yeah, why they really trying to think that like they need to be like they had to be historically accurate when the pre-orders kind of tell you otherwise. That like it, I don't think people in Japan really care if it's historically accurate.
Mhm.
Because if they really want to care about history, they would go like open a history book.
Yeah.
Bro, they can go visit the historical sites. It's literally in Japan.
Yeah.
They can
That's
go visit the sites.
yeah, literally that. Yeah, if anything, the noise that Aloy made too, that was also like the general frustration of like honestly the people that are just watching it. It's just like I think what it is too is just like two different groups of people that are like the smallest minority of representation of both parts here, and they're just screaming at each other at the loudest volume possible. We're just like drowned out of like either actual criticism that we want to throw to Ubisoft here.
Hmm.
Like, honestly, I wanted to at least wait to see like how well it does. I probably won't play it. I'll probably watch a couple people playing the game, see how it goes.
I'll probably buy it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I'll watch you play it.
Yeah. If it honestly play it too, and I want to record anytime the Yasuke comes out that there's like a hip hop beat, or if it doesn't too, I'll just get the music bot to play one.
Hey, yo, chill, chill.
I'm kidding. But
I am gonna put on some battle music.
oh yeah,
I'm gonna have some drums, bro.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
The good
Right.
old morale boosting drums.
well yeah. I mean, Michael, with us like back at this point, like I feel like we're like beating this conversation piece down to the ground. What is your like lasting opinions about this?
Though I pretty much agree with you guys. Like when I first came in here, I was thinking, oh, it's Ubisoft. They're probably doing some stupid junk. They're doing all the pandering and things like that. But now that I have like heard kind of what this is, like what everything's about, like I honestly don't understand the outrage. I think it truly is strictly like people are upset at Ubisoft and they're like trying anything to like get back at them some way somehow.
Yeah.
So I mean, truly this feels like some worthless controversy, but like I guess only time will tell how it all
Yeah.
turns out.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing we really can do about it too is like we can't really like make any like quick judgments since the game isn't even out yet, right? And we
Yeah.
can even say that like this is all for like an agenda piece that Ubisoft is doing, which yes, you can really just say like a lot of like data kind of points to like in a lot of games too, that's what they're trying to do. But until the game comes out, all of this talk about if there's like an agenda, there's some political messaging that Ubisoft is trying to force down on us to, it won't matter unless the game comes out and it actually sells well. Because if that's the case, then who knows? Maybe we'll look into see why the game is good. That's our job as like people that play games and that want to make sure that a lot of this stuff that we play is kept right. And hopefully Ubisoft doesn't do the bullshit saying that, hey, because in order to play this game, you have to be online all the time to play this game. That was actually another original concern too, where like they were worried that like they had to have a constant online internet connection in order to play Assassin's Creed Shadow. And they said they probably in their Q&A misworded what they said to make it sound like that you need to, but they backed it up or they went back on that. It says like, no, you do not need to have a stable internet connection. You only need an internet connection to download the game. That's it.
Mhm.
So So really, I think the biggest issue that Ubisoft has going on to like the launch of Assassin's Creed Shadow is literally like their whole marketing, their sales, and like everything else. Just trying to make sure that they have their facts and all of their scripts laid out correctly. Like, because obviously right now it seems as though like internally Ubisoft is not doing that great either, based off a lot of reports.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
Yes.
But only time will tell too. And if the game doesn't do well too, and so does Star Wars Outlaw, if that doesn't do well, I don't know if Ubisoft will last any longer too. And if that's the case, then please somebody else buy the Tom Clancy titles away from them.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Making my name is.
That would be indeed very, very nice.
Yeah. Just like the same way about the whole news that 343 Studios is no longer going to be the main developer for making the next Halo title, or in this case, the Halo Combat Evolved remake.
Good.
We'll see how that.
Good.
Yeah, we'll see how any of this goes, because it looks like right now AAA studios are definitely hurting right now, because there's definitely a lot of restructuring that needs to be involved. Sorry, that was a little burp that came out.
Nasty boy.
No, you. And I wouldn't even say too that like the only reason was because of AI either. Maybe that is part of the problem, but you know, truthfully, we don't really know too. We don't work inside the company. There's definitely something that's happening within the company itself that we are not purview to, and that's probably a good thing too that we're not purview to.
We're not pervy too.
Yeah, purview. Fuck, English is hard.
I feel
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the normal like customers or consumers doesn't really give a shit about like what happens to the company. As long as the company delivers to the consumers good games, dude, a lot of people don't really care too much.
Oh, sorry. I was just laughing at something.
Yeah, damn. I thought you were laughing at me, and I was like, man, my feelings are hurt now. You
Hey, we
bitch.
can do that outside of the podcast.
Man. But I'll say like on behalf of the How to Trash podcast here, I don't think there's anything wrong with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Really, all it feels like to us really is just another AAA game project that might do mediocre. At least what I think.
Yes, yes.
But
Indeed, indeed.
But to Ubisoft, they don't want mediocre. They need this shit to succeed.
Yes, yes. Indeed, indeed.
But I feel like that could be another topic we could do as well, because like there's already right now for this upcoming end of this year and to next year, there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about as well. I just wanted this to be more or less a focus of something that like I at least want to address for the Hot or Trash podcast, just because I feel like I want to put a saying to this shit.
No,
I want
yeah.
to say something about this. But really, it doesn't matter to majority of the people here, whether or not if it was Yasuke or any other character that Ubisoft could have picked or made. Yeah,
Thanos.
yeah, fucking throw Thanos into Sengoku Japan. As long as they don't do shit like that, then yeah.
The Infinity Armor, bro.
God. But anyways, any of you guys have any lasting comments that you want to give to our audience here?
Make love to me.
Just play whatever game y'all want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just enjoy the games, man.
Enjoy games. We're definitely
Always making things so more complicated than they need to
If
be.
you don't like the game, don't play the game.
Yeah. There's always
Exactly.
another game you could play.
Unless they are extraordinarily racist or anything like that, then then you can start bitching and complaining.
Yeah. But outside of that too, a lot of it is like just maintain with the mindset that a lot of times all these companies do is just for money. And that's
I think it is, but like,
Thank you.
yeah. And
Well, they
truthfully
gotta survive
speaking,
somehow.
yeah, truthfully speaking, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just trying to do things for money. Really. But again, because it's Ubisoft too, and like they had a history of doing these types of moronic actions, We'll see what happens.
Of course, you gotta do the right thing. You know, you can't just do
Yeah,
anything. You gotta do
Yeah.
the right thing to make money.
yeah, yeah. The right thing to do is like not actually go so hard into NFTs. You fucking dumbasses.
Hey, are
God.
you making fun of me?
God, that was a whole craze and phase of that timepiece there that I wish that we could forget about.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
end it off.
Well, thank you all, everybody, for joining in this episode of the Hotter Trash podcast, where we're mostly. I don't think we shat on Ubisoft that hard, realistically. I think in some ways too.
I don't think we shout out on Ubisoft that like. Yeah, I mean, we were kind of just addressing the controversy. It's not.
Yeah, I didn't think we were attacking anyone.
I think it
Yeah.
was mainly addressing two parties that different opinions.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
Well,
it.
if that's the case, then I will at least say this to Ubisoft: please, for the love of God, do a better Tom Clancy title. You sack of shit.
Okay,
That's just
well,
me.
just jerked him off already. God. God. Just
I'm
let
not-
them succeed with Assassin's Creed. Oh my god. Ubisoft
Refuse.
replay. Oh my god.
Refused. I don't care. Oh yeah, there's also the whole monetization thing. But let's be honest, we've already talked about that kind of extensively on a previous
Yes,
episode. But anyways,
Yes.
thank you all for coming into our podcast here. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Brian doesn't love you.
What? I transitioned to the ending as soon as.
My 18 speed is now an AMG Mercedes. Used to smoke weed, but then I had a little